almost do like a role play now, because I'm learning that doing that really helps people visualize a little bit more. I want you to, I'm going to pretend I'm a bishop. I've had the blessing so far of not ever being a bishop. And I cannot imagine what that's like. And so I have interviewed hundreds and hundreds of young men and adult men, and you kind of get an idea of their pattern of thinking, their pattern of feeling. And so it surprises ecclesiastical leaders that these individuals, and yes, we are targeting primarily conversations and experiences with young men and adult men. But do not be deceived into thinking that there aren't issues for the young women and the adult women. Next month when we hold this meeting, our specialist Mindy Lundgren is going to be here presenting, and she's going to walk you through the specific details and the unique considerations that must be kept in mind when working with a teenage or an adult woman. And so we are being a little tilted towards the needs of the men, because that is my specialty. But don't miss next month when it'll be, I think, the 22nd, same time, same place, same link and everything. Try to keep that consistent. Each month we're going to provide you with an education. Okay? Now, what surprises each ecclesiastical leader is what goes on in the mind of someone. And when you put it in teenage terms, they're sitting there going, okay, I just heard that I should talk to my ecclesiastical leader or my parents, but I know for sure that if I go in there and tell the bishop, he's got a sledgehammer behind his desk, and he's going to bring it down on me. He's going to slam me with it. He's going to crush me with it. Okay? This question that was asked earlier, what advice do you have for youth who don't want to tell their parents? The reason they don't want to tell their parents is an imaginary experience brought on by Satan to create this disconnect that Martin was talking about so that families don't work together as teams. But the convincing image that these kids have is some thorough, crushing bomb being dropped on them. This is why husbands don't tell wives. This is why, we have a progress calendar called a manpower calendar. When a brand new kid is, or young man or adult is, it's recommended we put it in a public place. And you should see their face like, I don't want that in a public place. I show them the piece of paper and I say, what part of this says I have a pornography problem? It says manpower, and it has 6 things on it: praying, writing, reading, ministering or serving, checking in with other people for accountability or working on passion projects, and a square that represents that you're not going to do certain things. There's nothing on there to even imply it, but they're scared to death that someone's going to mock them. Now, one of the tools to help people get the services you provide as a parent, or you provide as a bishop, or you want them to access with other people, because of Satan's phenomenal ability to create imaginary scenarios, we're going to have to create scenarios that are not imaginary, but can replace the vision that they had in their minds before. Let me give you an example of this, starting from an ecclesiastical perspective. What I recommend you do is, whenever you're talking about this initially, you want to talk about it in a group setting. You do want to have your young men and your young women in the same room at the same time. You can invite the parents too if you want to, but that's not a requirement. Okay? But then as you're talking about it, as you're midway into the conversation, you've already put stuff on the table, and really your disposition, your attitude while you're presenting this is going to make a big difference. If you go in there going, all right, we're going to talk about a very humiliating, embarrassing, grotesque, and mortifying topic, then you're going to create lots of fear and shame right off the bat. Okay? When you go into it, you say, how many of you like this dynamically new experience called being a teenager? Okay? And if I'm talking to a group of them, I want to start throwing the questions on the table right away and get rid of some of the embarrassing shame. You guys all see social media. You guys see some stuff that surprises you. You guys see stuff that is thrown in your face. So you want to make sure your presentation is such that I'm not looking for the ones of you that went seeking for it, but all of you are getting exposed to it. Okay? I had a stake president I was working with who says, you know, how many of you have a pornography problem? That was one of his favorite statements. How many of you have a pornography problem? And people are all like hiding their hands, and he shoots his own hand up. The stake president puts his hand up, and he says, I have a pornography problem. And everyone's going, what? The stake president just said he has a pornography problem. He says, yes, it's a problem because it's in my face all the time, and I have to do something about it. Okay? And he even went this far as to say, all of you who go southbound on I-15, this is a couple years ago, do you know that one billboard? You know the billboard I'm talking about? Okay, and people are trying not to nod. Okay, but he's all, I have a problem every day that I drive past that because now the Lamanites have attacked me. It's like going on a horse ride back in military days or horse days. I don't know, chivalry. And there's a guy that always tries to throw a rock over the fence and hit you in the head every time you go by. Every time you go by, he's always trying to hit you in the head with a rock. You're all, dude, can you stop throwing rocks at me? And he's all, sure, I won't throw a rock tomorrow. Come on by and we'll see if I throw a rock at you tomorrow. Okay, and you're all, what do you know about him? He's lying. What do you know about Satan? He's lying. Okay, so bishops, parents, when you're talking about this to people, make sure you normalize it, is the term for it in psychology. You talk about it as if I am dealing with this too. It's in my face too. And so when I see that billboard, I have to do something about it. Okay? Now, as I'm role-playing this, I go, all right, folks, how many of you have seen it? And then you pull out a statistic if you want to. This thing says that by the time you're 16 years old, you've had at least 1, if not 10, exposures. Exposure does not mean you went looking for it. Exposure does not mean you wanted to, I'm seeking it out, I want to have it. I'm not trying to identify which ones of you are addicts right now. I want everyone to acknowledge that they're almost nevers because that helps us move them through the steps of finding the help that they need. Okay? Then, now, one of my favorite things to do to get more direct confession, if you will, especially from a ward or any type of church type dynamic, large group dynamic. Ecclesiastical leaders, this is one of the funnest and most powerful things we've ever done. I was challenged by a stake president in Layton, Utah. Notice I used my T there, Layton. Okay. Layton, Utah. And he says, okay, I want you to not just tell us about it, I want you to give us an extremely practical thing that we can use to get people to begin the conversation with us if there's a possible problem. Okay? I was on my bike ride that weekend, and this is where I do a lot of my pondering and listening to conference talks. And the idea that came to mind is the following, and we actually did it. I contacted the stake president that day and got some permission in advance, and was able to use his phone number. So if I'm a bishop or an ecclesiastical leader, now, we all know, this was funny, this was like 4 or 5 years ago, so the whole idea of bringing a phone or an iPad to church was still a little sketchy, but I think it's pretty much a thing. In fact, my daughter said, we were telling her to leave her phone at home, and she said, I'm supposed to bring it. We study our scriptures on our phones in Sunday school and in Young Women's now and all. What am I supposed to do with that?
They don't even produce the young people manuals. The only way they can get the manual is on their phone.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Okay. There you go. So, I told them, and this is what I invite you to do, everyone get your phones out. Everyone get your phones out, which totally freaks kids out. And they're like, holy cow, he's encouraging us to get our phone out. Now open your texting app. Get your text app out. Whatever you use for that, and some of them are so Snapchatty or Instagrammy that they don't even text very much anymore, but we can text them. Then, bishop or parent, put your phone number, 801 blah 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 blah, put it where they can all read it, and just say, type that into your phone, and I want everyone to do this, okay? Now, hunker down over your phone just a little bit, and I want you to type a number to me. I want you to type a number to me And I want you to think about the last 4 weeks, just in the last 4 weeks, how many times have you run into pornography? Has it been exposed to you? Or any other type of sexual experience that was out of your comfort zone? Now, that's another thing you want to use. If you're going to include the other morality issues, including masturbation or sexual activity with somebody else, stop or never start implying that they wanted it, that they were seeking it out, that they were going for it. I appreciate what Markham brought up. We use a term called lost battles. And we use this term for a reason. Instead of relapses, instead of slip-ups, we use the term lost battles to remind both the teacher and the listener that it is a battle. It wasn't something they requested, and it came at them. Okay? Look at your own history. I assume if you're here, you've been mortal your whole life, and you've had at least one lost battle of some form of a sexual nature, and you're an almost never, you're not a never yourself. Okay? If someone came up to you and said, "Oh, I know you, you're the one who likes to have lost battles. You wanted to have lost battles, you sought it out." Okay? Even when it comes to morality issues involving other people, oh, and goodness sake, if there's a chance, I have a few clients where they were sexually assaulted in their younger years, okay, and the perpetrator told them that they wanted it and that they liked it, and that they were a sinner because they participated in the abuse. Okay? And when an ecclesiastical leader validates that and says, "Well, you know, you didn't say no and you didn't try to stop it hard enough," okay? Please do not add to their trauma by making it sound like they are the sinner for being sexually abused. Okay? All misbehavior, by the way, is when your behavior or your actions contradict your value system. What you prefer to be like, what you want to be like. And about everybody I've ever met prefers not to have lost battles. Okay? The pleasure in them is so inadequate. It's so not really pleasurable. This is quite fascinating when you're talking to a woman about male sexuality and the implications. Well, he does it because it's pleasurable, he does it because he likes it. It's not that awesome. You interview these guys, you interview all of them, it's like, in fact, I interviewed a guy yesterday in his early 30s who's between marriages, and he's got his own little thinking errors going on where sexual activity being between marriages, as long as you're like committed to the person, and he found himself in a situation with a woman he didn't have much of a connection with, and they went there, and I said, "Well, was it amazing?" And he said, "No." I says, "But you got to do the thing." And he's all, "No, it was not amazing." So please, ecclesiastical leaders and parents, when you're talking to your loved ones, do not imply that they like sinning, that they enjoy sinning, that they find pleasure from sinning. Because they do not. Okay? And that will cause them shame if you do so. So keep the mentality, and the book Like Dragons Did They Fight will really help to clarify that. To help you understand that we are good people who are being attacked by a skilled and ferocious demon. And by the way, that's not a way of saying we excuse you. You're excused from blame. As soldiers of the Nephites, it is not our fault that the Lamanites attack us, but it is our responsibility to learn how to fight back until we win. Okay? Alright, so to continue the conversation about how to talk to the teenagers. Give them your phone number, have them get their texting out, and with it all covered up, they're just going to send you a number, How many times have you been exposed to pornography, or have you experienced something attacking you, an opportunity attacking you, and you didn't handle it as well as you wanted to? Something of a morality issue that you didn't handle as well as you wanted to. How many times did that happen in the last month? And send that number, and now we're going to play a game. Make sure your audio is on your phone. This is really fun to do in a stake level meeting, or a large. So in this case, we have the stake presence number up there, a full audience, stake size audience of, we brought both youth and adults, so at least 500 people in the room. And I says, now, does everyone have their number? You got your number on there? Now everyone push send at the same time. Okay? And I had the stake president hold up his phone, so you hear the bling, 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 that kept going for quite some time. He had to mute his phone so we could continue the presentation. Now, the reason we have everybody do this is so that we can't just say, all right, those of you who have had exposure, you get your phones out. The others of you keep your phones in your pocket. Okay? That's a glorious way to shame them right off the bat. All right. That is one of the advantages of modern technology. The next step, while you're presenting to them, please role play how you're going to handle it when you meet with them. Okay? So, in fact, you might want to do this before you invite them to send a message to you. Do two types of role plays. Do the role play that you're guessing they fear you're going to do. For instance, okay, I'm the bishop, I'm sitting there behind my desk. Someone comes in and says, is there a problem? Yeah, there's a problem. Okay, what is the problem? You have a pornography problem, don't you? Kind of, a little sort of. What kind of messed up kid are you, man? Do I need to drop the hammer on you? You're fired. I'm going to announce it in the sacrament meeting. Everyone's going to know you can't go on a mission. Okay. All of you raise your hands who think that's how I'm probably going to respond. Okay. The weird thing is you might have a couple guys going, yeah, I thought that's what you would do. Okay. They do have fears, and they've been manufactured in their minds for quite some time. Parents, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to a kid and I said, do your mom and dad know about this? No, you can't talk to my mom about it. What do you imagine she's going to do? I don't know, kill me? Okay, so let me role play it. So she's going to put her hands around your neck and shake until your face turns blue and you die? Well, no. She's going to ground you for 35 years? No. She's going to take away all your electronic devices for 10 years? Yes. That's the one right there. That's what she's going to do. Okay? Alright, now role play what a bishop's actually going to do. If I'm a bishop and I've got someone who is sitting in my chair, and what? How long does it take to tell if they're probably going to try to confess something? Especially if you just got a text message from them. Go, alright, let me guess. I'm going to guess something here. Now notice my tone. I'm keeping it really light. I'm going to guess that you've had something happen in your life that you're not really comfortable with, or you're not really excited about. And the person usually just freezes up a little bit. Then you got to say, welcome to being a human. Welcome to being like me. I've sat in that chair. I've been there before. I've talked to lots of people. Welcome to what the gospel was all about. You live your life, you make a mistake, you get surprised by it, then you have an ecclesiastical leader in my position, so we're not even going to talk about the specifics of what you've done yet, because that's not even the most important part. I'm just going to assume you've got something to share with me, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit. Let me tell you what's going to happen when you share that with me. I'm going to be sad. That's what I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be disappointed. I'm not going to be angry. Okay? I'm going to be sad. You usually get a surprised facial expression from that. What? You're going to be sad? Why are you going to be sad? Because I remember when I had lost battles. And they're all, what? You never had lost battles. You're a bishop. I remember when I felt pain. I remember when I had something eaten away at my brain. I remember that. And I remember how scary it was, and I remember how painful it was. I remember going, am I ever going to get over this? Am I ever going to stop? And how does Jesus feel about me now? The more you can verbalize what is probably going on in their head, the more likely they're going to trust you. Okay? The more likely they're going to open up to you. Okay? Now, I'm going to be sad. I'm going to agonize with you. And then here's what we're going to do next. We're going to figure out how complicated it is. We're going to find out if this is a oops, so you can change the terminology so that it's a little more relatable to a teenager. And almost never is someone who has oopses. Okay? Oops. Oh, oh, ah, whoa. Okay? If it's an oops, and make sure you roleplay. Oops. Okay? If your experiment is like, it comes and goes, we're going to find out if this problem comes and goes. It's here, it goes away, it's here, it goes away, okay? We're going to find out if it's just something that you just can't get rid of. It's just like, it follows you around. You can't get rid of it. Follows you around. Okay? My handwriting gets really bad really fast, okay? So they wouldn't be in your office if they were already at the level 4. They're in your office because they oopsed, it comes and goes, or it follows them around. Okay? Yes?
Do we want, like, how often and how many months associated with those? Is that helpful?
So the question is, should we get a little more concrete about what this represents? I'm hesitant to do that. Okay? I'm hesitant to do that, but I will. Alright? Because it's not the frequency that determines the severity of the problem. Let me explain why. Okay? And this is one of the most important things that we've settled ourselves down, because it's not really great news. It's not something that's really that fun to talk about. For years, we've been trying to train ecclesiastical leaders to handle this on their own as much as they can. I know that ecclesiastical leaders, you want to do this in-house as much as you can. Let me tell you, back to that oncologist that I was talking about earlier. Okay? You have been working your whole lives to be good dentists, good plumbers, good stockbrokers, good mechanics. You're really good at many things, all right? But imagine if you felt some kind of a responsibility to help your loved ones get over cancer because you didn't want the expense or the burden or the scare of involving an oncologist, a cancer doctor, okay? If you didn't know this already, the genetic code inside of human beings comes with glitches. There's some inaccuracies to it. And every one of us has a few inaccuracies, but we don't really know what they are. We don't know what our hang-ups are going to be. Some of them are more blatant. Others are more hard to see. But one of the most unpleasant chemical or genetic codes leaves a person in a place where one drink of alcohol and they're now an addict. They're now an alcoholic. One drink and it flips a switch in their brain and they're now an alcoholic. And so why do we as Mormons, thanks to the wisdom, the word of wisdom that was passed on to us before the medical doctors even knew the problem, we teach, do not use alcohol. Do not use alcohol, because if you do and you get hooked, you're going to be fighting that battle for a very long time. Bishops, parents, ecclesiastical leaders, please understand. One exposure to pornography can move someone straight to level 3. Some people have a genetic code that makes them susceptible, that makes them vulnerable, so that one exposure can flip a switch in their brain and they're now addicts. Some of those people, the casual drinkers, those people who, I've been drinking alcohol every weekend for years and I'm still not an alcoholic. I can drink when I want to drink and not drink when I don't want to drink. Those people, the chemical switch or the stripping has not happened yet, but we don't know if it's the next drink that's going to turn them into an alcoholic. So they just become casual with it. The same thing is with casual pornography users. They don't know which usage is going to flip the switch. Okay? And so, encourage you to go, okay, so back to breast cancer has a symbolic thing. If there's a lump, if there's something going on there, what do we do if we're the woman? What do we do if we're the man? We go in as fast as possible to a screening and find out if it's serious or scary. We do not wait and see if it's going to get worse. Okay? Wait and see if it's going to get worse. Why would we do that? Because I would be embarrassed to get a screening for breast cancer. Sadly, you hear stories about people, men with prostate cancer, women with breast cancer. I just don't want to go through the embarrassed uncomfortableness of being checked to see if I have a serious problem. Please, if you have a loved one,
Finish your thought.
if you have a loved one who has ran into, and they're showing the slightest signs of different personality, a little more aggressive, a little more moody, a little more anything, it doesn't take much of anything. Get a screening for them. I don't know what other companies out there are providing such things, but Life-Changing Services, whose mission statement includes being of service to ecclesiastical, to LDS people, primarily ecclesiastical leaders, please contact us and get a screening. It can be done by webinar, so it doesn't matter where you live. We have a long list of clinicians who are very good at picking up on the complexities of an addiction and can interview in such a way that we can find out. Sometimes it is something where, you know what, I think we're good here, but let's do a checkup in about 4 months, or let's do a checkup in about 6 months. Okay? Or sometimes, sadly, we discover this is way worse than we thought it was. You've only seen 10% of how much the confessions you've gotten are only 10% of what's actually going on. What's the question?
Just a comment from someone attending. I want bishops to understand the damage that is done when a spouse reaches out for help and instead receives blame, skepticism, or indifference.
Okay, not this coming month, but the month after that, this is going to be one of our main topics as we talk about the effects of pornography use on the spouse. For today, ecclesiastical leaders, please, 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 no matter what the person experiencing the addiction says, we have been taught in our doctrine, it's connected to the second article of faith, men will be punished for their own sins and not Adam's transgressions. We will be punished for our own sins and not our spouse's transgressions or our parents' transgressions. It's not a surprise if I get a teenager in my office for a one-on-one session and I start addressing his behavior, and I try to address it playfully, going, all right, what did you do this week that you need to make sure we get better at? And he says, well, my mom, and well, my dad, and well, my mom, and well, my dad, and well, my mom and dad. I'm going, hold on a second, how old are you? Aren't you trying to demonstrate that you don't need a mom and a dad? You can behave independent of your parents? They go, well, yeah. So you just told me that you can't behave independent of your parents. That your behavior is a result of what your parents do. Now, sadly, this is actually more common with husbands than it is with even the youth. As soon as you start talking about their misbehavior, they're very quick to say, well, let me share with you how what my wife did caused me. For instance, a common one we get is, I couldn't keep telling her the truth because she was so mad or she was so scared. So I had to start lying to my wife about what was actually going on. Okay? I had to start hiding it from her. So my integrity is based on whether or not she responds in a way that I would like her to respond. Okay? And then what happens very sadly is he convinces the ecclesiastical leader that if she would be nicer to me, if she would be more comforting, if she would be more understanding, and to not be too graphic about it, but if she would spend more quality time with me in the bedroom, then I wouldn't have this problem. Please, 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 do not let someone convince you that my bad behavior is because of what somebody else is doing. Okay? So, don't tell the wife to do something different to fix the problem for the man. Okay? It's not her fault. It's not her. She's not the one to blame. Okay? Is that adequate for that question? Okay. Let me know if there's more. All right. Going back to the interviewing style. Now, if you as the ecclesiastical leader have brought to the surface that you, whether it's a screening, you're going, you know what, we need to get a screening, or if you've worked with the person a little bit and you've tried some things. By the way, we have 2 applications now for the phone that will give you an opportunity for to play a role for accountability. But again, I'm always hesitant to provide the layman with the techniques for helping someone recover from this, because it's almost like an oncologist handing you a chemotherapy treatment and saying, you can just do this at home. Just go ahead and wing it. Here's a 30-minute video to watch, and now you can treat your loved one for cancer off of a 1 or 2 hour video. Okay? Get the professionals involved, case by case, so that what you do to help will be accurate. Okay? Now,
There is a question, how do I become an advocate for this in my state?
in your state? Okay, if you want to become an advocate for this, call our office, 877 HERO 877. Okay, you can go to our website, lifechangingservices.org, and there's lots of links there. YouTube has some really good videos. We've created a 33-minute video that is specifically designed to be used in Fifth Sundays and Firesides because it has no marketing material in it and is just there for the purpose of presentation for true principles. On sometimes we call that presentation, Why Do Smart People Do Stupid Things? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Here's another question. Can a bishop ask for a screening of a youth, and how much does it cost?
Yes. Now, of a youth, we cannot, because we are professionals, think of it, we are in the medical field, so you cannot send a kid to the doctor without parents knowing about it. You cannot send us to a doctor without knowing about it. The average price, it takes about at least 1 hour to do it correctly. If we can meet at least one family member, that is helpful because we can get more information about their overall personality. So a screening, you can call the same number. The average cost is $100. Okay, but think about it in these terms. It's the same thing as a screening for cancer. If you catch it early, and let me tell you how painful it is when we don't catch it early. When we are introduced to a young man 6 months or a year before he goes on his mission, and he's been fighting these battles for 3 years already, almost universally his mission is going to be delayed. This is not something you can just push a button on and have it fixed. Okay? It has to be carefully trained. To give you an idea of what it means to turn someone from an addict to an almost never person or a former addict, go back to that analogy of the nut and bolt scenario. If you're going to fix that nut and bolt so it works correctly, you have to take it to a machine shop. You have to take it to a machine shop and put both pieces in some kind of a vise, and then get some kind of a file or laser something, etc., and start carving and grooving the threads all over again. It has to be carved and grooved over and over again, slowly running it through to get the brain to work correctly. That's what we do in our training system, is we take accurate psychology, accurate decision-making processes, and carve them into their brain by repetition and pressure. Repetition and pressure of an edifying nature until their brain starts to work right. Okay? That is not something you can teach someone to do at home. Okay? So the cost of the screening is on average, it depends on who's doing the screening. We have some who've specialized for quite some time, but they're less available. So interestingly, the most expensive are the least available because everyone wants to work with them, and the other ones do a just fine job anyway. So just call the office, email them, and we'll make arrangements. It's approximately $100, but I'm telling you, it is well spent money because they're going to also help you come up with a plan that's appropriate for your loved one at the level they're at right now. They might do something as small and simple as a monthly visit with one of our personal warrior trainers. So that would be a $25 a month expense to help them stay sharp and strong.
$25 for a 30-minute session, at
20
whatever frequency.
$25 for a 30-minute session, but with the personal warrior trainer, there will be a recommendation for how frequent to have those be. Some do it twice a week, some do it once a month, some do it once every other month. Therapy sessions are with someone who's a full trained therapist, and those average about $100, maybe just a little bit more per 1 hour session. And that's the most intense, but in the middle of all that is actually the most effective, which is group style training, team style training in Sons of Human or Men of Moroni. We do have a lot of confidence in the adult version of the 12 Steps ARP program for teaching the spiritual side of recovery. Repentance, edification, connection with God. But what we learned from our Book of Mormon is that if you're going to win a war, you have to have the spiritual and the temporal side of war preparation. You must have the ability to connect with God, stay connected to God, work with Him closely, and be trained in a military fashion. You have to have the training that Captain Moroni provided his men with, which was an awareness of the enemy, appropriate drills and stratagem, one of my favorite words from the Book of Mormon, strategies that are well thought out in preparation for what the enemy is going to be trying to do, and then practice, 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 and endurance and strength. If you don't have skill, strategy, strength, and endurance, you cannot win this war. Okay? You cannot win it. Any others for right now? No? Okay. Back to one of the most important questions we're trying to lead up to here. Okay? And that is, you're sitting there as an ecclesiastical leader, or you're sitting there as a parent, and you're hearing the person talking, and you sense that you're in over your head. Okay? You're going, whoa, this case is more than I can handle. Whether it's on a first visit or on the 8th visit, and you've been trying what you know how to do, you've been trying to work it out, and you go, we're going to need some help here. Okay? Now, the way we bring up that topic, let me tell you how not to do it. Okay? What you don't do is you don't drop back in your chair, drop your head to your chin and go, man, this is so bad that I'm going to have to send you to a therapist. Okay? Please do not do it that way. I don't know exactly how a female brain is going to respond to that, and some of them might go, oh, thank you. I can now work with someone who's a little more capable in this way. Do not say, but most men, let me give you the satanic translation of that whole conversation. What the man just saw was, you've lost hope in me, you don't think I can succeed, and you think I'm too stupid to figure it out on my own, and so you want to send me to a head shrinker that all he's going to do is ask me, how do you feel about your problems? Okay? And that's the last thing I want to do is talk even more about how I feel about this. Most men have never looked up, read, or studied what a modern therapist or psychologist does, so they still have that old-fashioned view in their mind that all they talk about is your feelings and they don't get anything done. Okay? So, a more correct way to bring up the topic is as if you've been working with a high school athletic coach and now you want them to meet an Olympic level athletic coach. You know, we've made progress here. We've done good. We've made this happen. We've made that happen. This battle is tough. This battle is hard. Mastering sex energy, mastering your ability to control these things is challenging for so many people, so many of us. I think it's time to bring in the big guns. I think it's time to get and use something that's relatable to them, like an Olympic coach, a college level coach. It's time to bring in someone who's got some mad skills. I've got someone in mind. I've got someone in mind I want you to meet. I know them. I've talked to them. I can have them call you. You can call them. I want you to meet somebody. Okay? And then let's see if it'll make a difference. They just happen to specialize in these things. Okay? When you ask a youth, when you ask an adult to meet someone, almost every one of them is okay, I'll meet someone. And you tell them they're a specialist, so they don't think you're just going to introduce them to the next door neighbor. I want you to meet someone, they're a specialist in this. Do not tell them, I think we now need to enroll you in a program. One of the top 5 things men don't want to hear. Okay? You need a therapist, and I'm enrolling you in a program. Okay? Now it's quite fascinating when you interview, and we've done this before, when you interview those participating in Sons of Healing Men and Moroni who've been going for at least a month, we've asked them, so you guys all remember those days when you were scared and nervous to get the training that you needed? Raise your hand if you were like hesitant or like completely against the training. They're like, me. Okay? Well, how would you recommend parents or ecclesiastical leaders get you to come to your first meeting? Because after the first meeting, what happens? Well, you realize you're not in a room with a bunch of weirdos. Well, they're still teenagers, but I don't know if we call them weirdos. You're not in a room with a bunch of people with tattoos and gauges who like to spit loogies on the corner of the floor. Okay? We're not in a room with a bunch of weirdos. These guys are seminary class presidents, student body presidents, athlete captains of the teams, highly socially skilled. These are not the messed up people. We're not talking about people who are like the broken ones in the corner. These are almost universally really good men and adult men who have that one thing they just haven't learned how to figure out. Go ahead.
A question we have is, how does this program fare with the church's addiction recovery program? I know you covered that a bit.
Okay, I'll come back to that though in a second. Okay? All right. Where was I? Okay. I want you to meet somebody. So, then you make arrangements. You as the ecclesiastical leader, you as the parent, don't worry about people have said, once I give them that much information, I don't want to enable them. I don't want to do it for them. Think in terms again about the medical experience of having cancer. You know what, you have cancer, but I don't want to enable you, so I don't want to drive you to the hospital. Because that would be enabling you. Okay? A person who's experiencing somewhere in this range here of experimenter and addict, you're not enabling them if you get them to where they need to go. So if you make the phone call, now I enjoy, when I have the time to do so, I don't mind at all, with your permission, to call the young man or the adult man, because that bridges the biggest gap. Once they hear your voice as the professional, they can make some really fast decisions over whether or not they trust you, want to give you a chance. If we as professionals can't build a relationship with your loved ones in less than 5 minutes, we do not deserve to be classified as professionals.
Do you want to define enabler for those that might not know that term?
So an enabler is someone who does something for someone else that they don't really need to have done for them. Okay? It's something they can do by themselves. Alright? But an addict getting the beginnings of help is highly unlikely to be able to do that on his own. Oh, another one we've heard is, as an ecclesiastical leader, we've heard this, please don't do this one either. I'm aware of a training system that would help you, but I'm not going to encourage you to attend it until you show me that you're motivated by winning more of your battles. Okay? They're not winning their battles because they're not trained, not because they're not motivated. Okay? Please do not withhold training from someone because they aren't winning the very thing they need to be trained to do. This gives us a segue into the question that was presented. The question is, What is the difference between the church's ARP 12 Steps program and Men of Moroni training or Sons of Healing training? Okay? To clarify it, the 12 Steps ARP program is classified as a support group. A support group is a place where you share and you're encouraged, and they do provide an excellent education and sharing of true gospel principles that, as has been described by some of the men I work with, that are perfect for healing and for solidifying the repentance process. Okay? But the problem is, as we've been told by those who attend, is it doesn't teach you how to change the behavior, and it doesn't teach you how to change it forever. When addiction is thought of as a health issue, when it's thought of as a recovery in the same way that I do recover from a medical condition, it's more accurate to think about it as a war than it is to think about it as a medical condition, although the medical condition does exist. So the brain does have to heal, and you have to train them to win the war. So the same problems you would have on a battlefield, like with the Sons of Healing, where all of them were physically injured, but they still had to know how to fight and be treated correctly for the healing. The 12 Steps program is amazing at healing. We are not gods as therapists. We do not help people heal the way God helps people heal. We are more like athletic coaches and military trainers, because we teach them in our training system to high-speed identification of attacks. How can I tell when it's coming sooner, before I'm hurt? We've all heard the phrase, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts, watch your thoughts. That has been one of the most effective ways to help people for many years, but as Satan has evolved in his methods, it's inadequate. Okay? For the last 5 and maybe 10 years, scientists have become more aware of how much your feelings are an influence on your thoughts. And so there's been a lot more feelings awareness. There's even acronyms for it, the old tired, bored, etc., etc. I don't know the exact one for that. But before feelings are chemicals. And chemicals in the brain will have more of an impact on distorting feelings and thoughts than anything else. We train them to identify chemical shifts in their brain, even 14-year-olds. Even the young ones. All men can do this, but they need the spirit of discernment, another bridge over into doctrinal or spiritual concepts. They need the spirit of discernment to recognize what's happening in their bodies, what's happening in their minds. And then, in the same way that you train the Sons of Helaman soldiers, if someone is swinging a sword at you this way, you're going to want to move this arm, that leg, in order to block it and counter it. Okay? If they attack you from this side, you're going to want to do this, this, and this. And then, I was a wrestler in high school, and once the coach showed us the moves in slow motion, if someone comes in at you for a double leg takedown, you do this, and this, in order to not only stop it, but counter it. Let's do it 3 times in slow motion, and then again, and then again, and then again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Okay? Now if he comes on this side for a single leg takedown, let's do it all in slow motion, and then faster, and faster, and faster, and faster. Okay? This is called training-based therapy, as opposed to what was used for many years and is still used, which is called insight-based therapy. And many ecclesiastical leaders and parents and professionals that are still learning how this stuff works, insight-based therapy is the idea that if I can just get the right thought into your head, Stephen Covey called it paradigm shifting. If I can just shift your thinking, everything will be different. Everything will change. Okay? Let me explain to you how that doesn't work with this stuff. Okay? Some people are watching March Madness these days, the basketball thing, and it's quite phenomenal to watch what some of these athletes are capable of doing. But if I'm a beginner athlete or an amateur who's trying to figure some stuff out, and I've been missing my three-point shot a few times, and I'm watching these games, and I watch one of these players shoot several three-point shots into the hoop, and I go, that's what I'm doing wrong. I can now see what I've been doing wrong. I've now had insight as to what I'm doing wrong. Okay? But then I wait 10 days and do practically nothing in the form of training, and then I show up at the game, and I imagine myself shooting the ball just the way that guy did. Why will it not work? Okay? You cannot change behavior just off the premise of insight. You have to develop strategy, technique, and then repetition, 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 repetition.
So the idea of a drill is that you practice these moves over and over and over again. And the most important thing about a drill is that you do it when you're not under attack. Starting with 3 times a day is a really good place to start. That way it's more likely that when you are attacked that you're going to remember and you're going to be able to execute the drill further. We want to make sure that you're clear that we've answered the question sufficiently. That what would you recommend to the guys to go to group for the first time? We covered that. We want to make sure that's covered sufficiently. And then we had another question that was clarification on what does before feelings are chemicals, what does this mean? We want to address that. We're of the opinion that Satan has the ability to influence our minds and introduce chemicals, and the chemicals actually cause the feelings. So we want to be at level 0 as much as we can. This is filling the spirit, feeling good, wanting to serve. Temptations don't affect us. And when we hit level 1, there's a certain level of chemicals. There's something that's hit our chemical brains, and this could be a flash of something inappropriate. It could be a memory from the past. That's where the chemicals hit. And then once we've processed that for a while, then we have the emotions. We believe those negative emotions related to the chemicals. So we had someone in the chat actually trying to answer this question. We can recognize the chemical changes in our body that precede emotions and then trigger acting out or the addiction cycle. So that's exactly right. So 3, 4, 5, and that's the cycle that we deal with. We had another follow-up question. Oh, feel free to ask more questions on the addiction cycle or the chemical scale is what we call that. He's saying that he likes how we said the ARP program is for healing and this is for fighting.
What I'd like you to do as you talk about that, Markham, is from a parent's perspective or an ecclesiastical leader's perspective, what am I watching for on the chemical scale in somebody else? And will you please finish the chemical scale too and describe the different pieces? And most of our training is about what it's like for the person themselves. Tell us what it looks like from the outside.
All right. So this is when you're feeling good. This is probably, when you're in church meetings or connecting with people, you feel really good. Some kind of chemical attack is very common. It could be a flash from the past. An image that gets the chemicals going, and so the feelings kind of hit you, but then you believe the emotions at level 2. Parents probably can recognize level 2 very easily. It's when you sit the young man down and say, "Is everything okay?" And the young man says, "Yes, everything's fine." That's how you can tell if they're level 2. Level 3 is when they're getting invitations to act against their values. We also call these dude moments. Most teenagers can relate to the dude moment. Dude, you're all alone. This is the perfect time. This looks like a fog. Mothers and women especially have what we call sometimes we call it a creepy guy detector, or we call it a radar. If I'm of the opinion that moms can tell, oh, they're a little off. Oh, they're having some stressful feelings. Oh, if I don't keep an eye on him, he's going to go find that computer and check out what he wants to check out. Moms have a great radar for that. 4 is when they're battling. It feels like a battle between the Holy Ghost and Satan. You should probably stop. Yes, I know, I probably should stop. Or you know where this is going. But it's actually, Satan has a pretty deep hold on us at that point. The Holy Ghost actually doesn't have much involvement there. Level 5 is finally the give up moment, and then they go down the swirl into the lost battle. I wish that more men were watching this, not that they are the only ones struggling. My heart goes out to the women who are watching with a husband who are struggling and are watching in search for their prayers. So maybe some quick advice to wives.
If you're a wife, that too takes training. Get involved with the Worth group, and if you're a mother, get involved with Mothers Who Know. They're both free services. Okay, there's no charge for those. For the wives, it's on a therapeutic level because it's so complicated and difficult. For the mothers, it's a training class of what to do for mothers and how they can proceed. I've just got one right here. What does a bishop do when a young man insists we cannot share with his parents? Now, I'd like to give a universal answer to that, but in reality, there are some occasional cases where we've got some parents that really are off in a pretty significant way. Okay? If I was a bishop and the kid's like panicky this way, I would call the parents in and tell the kid, I'm going to call your parents in, but I'm not going to tell them, now make sure, at least on this visit, I'm just going to assess what's going on with them so that I can get a better feel for your parents, and just touch base with them overall. It's a very difficult circumstance, but it's also very rare. Then as an ecclesiastical leader, I might ask the parents, what would you do if you find out your kid had this problem, or had these struggles, or etc., etc.? What would you do? And interestingly, and please, when you're training, you can do a class on this with parents. We've done it before. Mom and dad have a family home evening or something like that, to it, even at the dinner table, and just as if you're talking to the ceiling, you know what, family, teenagers, if I found out one of you had been running into pornography, this is how I would handle it. I would be sad, and I'd be worried for you. Here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't drop the hammer on you. I wouldn't kill you. I wouldn't throw you down the staircase. And just describe to them, the same way we did that role play with bishops, describe to your children how you would handle it if you found out about it. If we as bishops can train the parents to do that with their youth, we're much more likely to open a bridge between the parents and the youth. This article that's been there's also an article, there's a section in the back of the Like Dragons They Fight book for bishops, and it is directly talking about, it might be a little bit before the bishop section, on what's going on inside the mind of a young man when he's hesitant to talk to his parents. For the sake of time, I'm going to move forward. What's the next one?
What would you tell an Eternal Warrior's mentor, or maybe anyone in a non-ecclesiastical mode, to send students to more intense training? So we're focusing on bishops, so maybe other kind of teachers and leaders that aren't bishops.
So yes, Eternal Warriors is our training system for those who want to work on self-mastery but don't feel like they have an addiction. If you as a parent, Eternal Warriors trainer, ecclesiastical leader, if you're working with someone and you start to sense that the problem's more complicated, go back to that same technique and say, you know what, we've come a long way. We've made some excellent progress here. I want to step it up a notch, and I want to introduce you to someone who's got some pretty amazing skills with this stuff. I want to introduce you to someone and then do a 3-way phone call, 3-way video with them. Let me introduce you to someone. This is what they're doing right. This is what they've gotten really good at. Here's a few places where they're still hiccuping a little bit, but I really want them to do some training with you for a little while. Okay? All right, next one.
As a parent, how do I get the bishop on board to realize the situation that our family could really benefit from this program?
Okay. Ladies, I've had added to my testimony lately a concept or a pattern that I'm not thrilled about, and that is, ladies, I want to express sadness that you are invalidated more often than is appropriate, that you are ignored more often. But if you'll please take the risk, especially fathers and husbands, if you can join your wife. And sadly, we get more referrals from mothers than anybody else because fathers have a tendency to just hope it goes away. Mothers, please go into your ecclesiastical leader and just say, I just want to share some stuff with you. I want to share my pain with you. We hope that an ecclesiastical leader that's trying to be good at what he does will feel the spirit of your pain, will feel the spirit of your energy, and will respond to it. Don't worry about the technicalities of what you're going to teach the ecclesiastical leader. We have prepared something called a bishop's resource kit. This is a free series of information, including at least one copy for every ecclesiastical leader of the Like Dragons Do They Fight book. So ecclesiastical leaders, if you haven't gotten your free copy, it's available to you. Okay? Call our office. Mothers, if you have an ecclesiastical leader, we can even send it directly to you, the kit, the packet of information, and you can take it with you to your ecclesiastical leader so that they can have it. Okay? Next one.
I read something about the addict brain. Is that a thing?
Okay. We use the term addict brain. There's some very scientific descriptions of it, and then around here we use it more of as a euphemism to represent a part of the brain. So in the brain, the true science of what we're talking about is the animal brain. So we have frontal lobe that holds your value system and lots of other important things. But the animal brain, the addict brain, is an idea that represents that your animal response to things on a sexual level has been heightened to the point where you're animalistically reactive to it. You ever seen a dog that's been beaten for a while and then you try to reach for it and it just skitters? Okay? A normal reaction for a dog is to want to be petted. Okay? A normal reaction is that. But if it's been traumatized or if it's been affected, it now will have a different response than we were hoping it would have. Addict brains have lots of reactions to things that are different than what a normal brain would have for it. So there's also some of those really cool brain scans that'll show you here's an addict's brain and here's a non-addict's brain. If you want to, we don't use those so much. We're referring mostly to behavioral patterns that are a reaction that would be different from someone who does not have a sex addiction. We've got about 3 minutes. In summary, our 2 goals for this meeting: discerning whether or not somebody needs extra help and how to offer that to them. To bring it all down to a 1 to 2 minute conversation, ask the question, when were you last exposed, in a tone of voice that says it hit you, not you looked for it. When were you last exposed? Okay? The texting technique of inviting people to all send you a number of how many exposures they have had in the last month will give you a good idea of what's going on. If you have someone who has 1 or more, invite them to talk about it, not because they're coming into your office as a bishop to begin the repentance process, but to begin the conversation about fortifying and training. Our Eternal Warriors system is specifically for those who are not addicts, but will train them to respond fast and correctly to exposure. Okay? And this Eternal Warriors training, a parent or an ecclesiastical leader or anybody else can become what we call an Eternal Warriors mentor, so you can learn how to train it to your loved ones. But we do usually recommend you get them started right away with somebody else teaching them, but you can learn how to teach it also. Okay? Which is a version of teaching all those little training tools, those training techniques. Quite phenomenal. Okay? So, how to recognize it? They're either an experimenter, an addict, almost never experimenter, addict, former addict. Okay? Then, if you sense that they need more than you have to offer, because sometimes you're just a brand new bishop or a brand new parent of a teenager and this is your first time, go for the screening as soon as possible. When you have someone get a screening, you can consult with the professional who did the screening and learn just a little bit more about levels of addiction and how it affects that person from an actual case at your fingertips. So I want you to meet someone. I want you to meet someone. Even for the screening, you can say, I want you to meet someone, and they're going to help us figure out how bad the problem is. Okay? Go ahead.
How can women dating men help them learn about this and feel a need for this program without triggering negative emotions and making them feel worse?
My assumption is that's a person between marriages, unfortunately.
Or first-time dating couples, possibly.
The trainings that we have for the first-timers, Daughters of Light, also provided by Mindy Lundgren, is the best training system you'll find for, because these questions you're asking usually come in the conversational tone of, in 15 seconds or less, can you answer this? These are not things that can be taught in 15 seconds or less, okay? If you want to learn how to get the right mindset for a woman in the dating world who's never been married before and is in that stage, Daughters of Light, there's a branch of Daughters of Light that's specifically for confidence and communication and self-mastery. And then we have another branch called Willing Because I Have To, which is a long name for our divorced women's group, which very much so include in that, which is also a free service. Daughters of Light is not a free service, but Willing Because I Have To is a free service led by clinicians, and one of the main topics they talk about there is how to get the right mindset as you enter the dating world so you don't get into trouble again and go through that what they call carrying your baggage into the next relationship. Okay? So, Willing Because I Have To, otherwise known as the divorce group, and Daughters of Light. Anything else?
If someone's interested in getting in Eternal Warriors for themselves.
Okay? It's all the same process. We've narrowed it down. The same contact information you see on your screen in the chat section. Life Changing Services, 877-HERO, shoutoutreach@gmail.com. Any one of those, and just tell them what you're interested in, or just say, please give me a call. I'll tell you what's going on in my life, and you tell me which services to use best. Okay? Alright, we've got to wrap up now. I hope this has been of value to you. We've worked really hard to make sure it's something that can make your lives better. It's a pleasure spending time with you. We look forward to your phone calls and your emails. We'll see you later.